The argument, of course, is that the reason the companies say drugs are so expensive is that they have large R&D budgets that's giving them the resources to create new drugs and get those out to this country and to the world, but we're shouldering the burden of that. Is that any truth to that?
There is a grain, or maybe a third of a grain, of truth to that.
Okay.
It is a great talking point.
It is a great talking point.
And it has sort of face validity or appeal to it. But we've actually looked at that pretty carefully, and there's a couple of facts that get in the way of that very plausible but not totally accurate case. One is that an enormous amount of the expense of developing drugs comes from public dollars paid, at least until now, through the National Institutes of Health, which supports researchers in labs and medical schools and teaching hospitals like mine all over the country to develop, first of all, the basic science, which is very kind of risky in the sense that you can't make money off of it and you can't immediately charge anyone for it. It's just the basic building block of everything we need to know to discover new drugs. But sometimes, as Kesselheim and I and others in our group have shown, there are drugs where it is actually taken right up to the finish line. And there's a notorious example of a drug called Xtandi, which is a great drug for metastatic prostate disease. It was developed 100% at UCLA by some brilliant scientists there, completely on the basis of federal funding. But because of the way the laws are written, they were able to then license it out to a series of companies, which basically sold the rights to it from one to the other. And it's now in the hands of both Pfizer and a Japanese company called Astellas, and they market it. And they are charging 2 to 6 times what to Americans what people in other countries pay for the very same drug that they are selling to them. And there's no ambiguity here about how much money did the companies put into that drug. They put a lot into marketing and selling it, but in fact, the development was virtually completely publicly funded. And yet the public does not get a break on the basis of the billions of dollars that Pfizer and Astellas are charging for that drug. And ironically, Americans are paying more for it than people who live in other wealthy countries are paying for the very same drug.
So when you hear a story like this, and then you listen to President Trump talking about that he's going to come down on the high price of prescription medications and how broken the system is, that must be music to your ears, right? And you're delighted of all the things they're doing.
If I believed it, it would be music to my ears, yes.
Okay.
And I find it, I guess we have to thank President Trump for putting back on the agenda of the nation's consciousness that Americans, we are paying literally 2 times per capita what people are paying for the very same drugs. And ironically, often drugs that we've invented here. The next sentence should not be, so therefore, let's cut the NIH's budget by 20%. I mean, that is an utter non sequitur. I believe, and my colleagues and I have argued, that there ought to be a fairer way that when a drug does hit the jackpot, like Xtandi, that is bringing in billions of dollars a year, and it was developed with heavy or complete payment by U.S. taxpayers, there does need to be a better way that we can have some of that profit shared back with the people who helped to make that drug possible. And there's ways that can be dealt with. It's even written into the law that if a drug is heavily developed by taxpayer funding, the government, if it is not readily available at a plausible cost, can, the phrase is, march in and reassert the government's rights to that patent. But that has never been implemented by the government. This is a choice that's been made. The government has never used that right that it has to say, hey, wait a minute, we paid for this drug and now you're charging exorbitant amounts for it. You can't do that. We're going to reclaim the patent. That's never, ever happened, even though it is legally possible. And there's a lot of other ways that could be done. This is not inscrutable. It's just that because the pharmaceutical lobby is the largest or one of the very largest lobbying forces in Washington, they get to kind of write the rule books.
So we have President Trump, we have RFK Jr., neither of which is a fan of the drug companies and want to make changes. Are they talking about the type of changes that you're referencing and thinking that that might be a better option than simply cutting NIH type funding?
I have not, although I was interested in a lot of what has come across as, anti-pharma rhetoric by the new administration, just the same as they've been, against the food industry and against a lot of other, so-called large monopolistic parts of the country. I have not yet seen anything that would lead to acting on that. And on dark days, which are now about 9 out of 10 for me, I worry that that is just kind of a populist argument. We're going to go after the big drug companies. We're going to go after big agriculture. We're going to make America healthy. We're going to end chronic disease. I think that those are phrases that voters who aren't paying a lot of attention will be drawn to, but I have yet to see anything that is a concrete enactment of any of those values.